I want to tell you all the story about a Minnesota native child. She grew up in St. Paul, fishing, hiking, riding bikes, and running wild. Well, she never dreamed her passion for the outdoors would take her quite so far. But Governor Walz made her the head of the Minnesota DNR. Since she took the helm, the DNR has faced 100 issues, old and new. We're talking COVID, locks and dams, wolves and carp and mussels, mining too. But through it all, she's kept her head. She has been a public superstar. So don't mess with the head of the Minnesota DNR. No, don't mess with the commissioner of Minnesota's DNR. In fact, she's hanging on the line right now, and I don't want to mess with her. So hang on, I'm going to go over here, switch mics, and start the show. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Here we go. Please say hello to tonight's cast of the Theater of Public Policy, Duck Washington, Jim Robinson, Alexis Camille, Chris Rodriguez, and Fred Chang. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce your host for this evening, coming to you live from the Bryant Lake Bowl Theater. It's Tane Danger.
Hey, hello, everybody. Hi. Hey, thank you all so much for being here. I am terrifically excited to be doing this show this evening. My name is Tane Danger. I am the host of this program called the Theater of Public Policy, where every week we talk to a very smart person about a big idea or a set of issues. And then we have this team of really amazing improv comedy performers who you just met, who bring everything that we have talked about to life through entirely unscripted improv comedy theater. And tonight is a very fun show because we have actually a return guest, the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. But before I bring her out and have a great conversation with her, I got to do a couple quick thank yous and notes about some things. So I have to say, first of all, you'll notice I am here in the Bryant Lake Bowl, which is our home theater in beautiful uptown Minneapolis. The Bryant Lake Bowl Theater has been our home for many years. They, like a lot of businesses right now, are having some challenging times, but they are open and you can support them. And so if you are somebody in the Minneapolis area, I very much encourage you, come when the Bryant Lake Bowl is open, which is most Wednesday through the weekend, to get something to eat, to have a beer on their back patio or on their front steps. They also have social distanced dinners in here in the whole theater space, so you can have a dinner on stage at the Bryant Lake Bowl. Isn't that fun? But they are great. They are still here. They let me come in here and do the show all by myself in the theater for free, which is fun. And then our other sponsor all season long for many years is fabulous Finnegan's Beer. Love Finnegan's Beer. They are a wonderful Minneapolis-based beer company that not only makes delicious, tasty beer, but 100% of their profits go to feeding the hungry. So if you go and get some Finnegan's Beer, you are A, supporting a Minneapolis business, B, you're getting great beer, and C, you are helping feed the hungry. So you're checking all kinds of boxes. And I've got an extra box to check for you tonight, which is tonight I am drinking Finnegan's Kick to the Herb Pale Ale, which is made with honest-to-God hemp seeds in it, which, you know, just like some good CBD is just taking that edge right off, I'm going to say. Because it's a stressful week, people, all right? It's a stressful week, and I just need all the chill out I can get right now. And so some nice Kick to the Herb from Finnegan's is the perfect beer for this week. All right. So with that, I cannot wait to have this conversation. I'm super excited. Actually, the last time that we had tonight's guest on the show, I wasn't there, so I didn't get the chance to actually talk to her. And so now we rebooked her just out of my selfish desire to want to get to chat with her. So she is the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. Before that, she served as Assistant Commissioner of the DNR. She was previously Policy Director at Friends of the BWCA and Associate Director of the Minnesota Land Trust. Wherever you are, please make a big round of applause for Minnesota's Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, Sarah Strommen, everybody! Yay! There's applause.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there's tons. So thank you so much for being here. I'm delighted to get to chat with you. We wanted to talk with you because we did have you on the show about a year and a half ago, and we're like, oh, a lot's changed in a year and a half. And I think that the relationship that a lot of us have to our outdoors has probably changed a lot. So let's just sort of set the table this way. How do you just sort of, this is a gigantic question, how do you think about the philosophy of public spaces? All right, ready, set, go. Now, to be more specific, I'm curious, how, as the commissioner of somebody overseeing all of our public spaces and whatnot, you really think about how we share that resource and how we manage it. And I realize that is sort of asking you to define everything that you do, but can you help us get started?
Yeah, I'd love to help you get started. And let me say thank you so much for having me back. I had a great time the last time, and it's wonderful to be here to talk about our public lands and our public outdoor spaces. And I think, one thing that we like to remind everyone is our public lands do belong to everyone. In Minnesota, they belong to all Minnesotans. And we like to say they are owned by you and they are managed by DNR. And we manage about 5.6 million acres of public land in Minnesota for all Minnesotans. And we manage them for a whole variety of values. So we manage lands for recreation, we manage lands for health and wellness, we manage lands for economic values, we manage lands for their ecological values. There are lands, for example, that help provide flood control, some of those services that nature gives us. And we manage them for their intrinsic value as well. So lots of people use our public lands for those different values, many different perspectives. People in Minnesota are really passionate about their public lands. And we manage different kinds of lands for different types of purposes. So as you can imagine, some of those values are very compatible, some of them are not. So in Minnesota, a lot of our public lands, they're broken into what we call the outdoor recreation system. So we manage state parks and recreation areas, which are primarily managed for some of those park and recreation uses, obviously also cultural resources that we have in those parks and the natural resources. We manage state forests, which are managed for a variety of wildlife and ecological values, but also for timber values and the economic value they provide there. And we manage wildlife management areas, which provide habitat and hunting opportunities primarily, and scientific and natural areas, which help protect some of our more rare ecological features and serve as wonderful spots for folks looking to do research on plants and wildlife in Minnesota.
So, okay, that is I feel like you've practiced that. That was a very good answer to this. But I want to dig in on these conflicting value pieces, because that's a big part of why we wanted to talk to you. Because it does seem like the conversation that you end up having to manage a lot or engage with are when people have these very different ideas of what they want to do with the land. So I'm going to take a totally I don't know if this is petty, but a totally personal to me one, which is I have a public park near where I live. I actually think it's probably a city park, not a state park, but I think the idea still stands. People love going there. They love running around, doing these different things. There is someone else who really likes to go there and yell at people and just shout at them. And like, I realize that is, an obvious sort of like one example, but I think sometimes about, well, he has a right to be here and he has a right to like be here and be noisy if he wants to. But I also get like, he's making it so that there's probably a bunch of people who like really don't want to have someone tell them that they're going to hell, which is what he likes to do. And so they probably won't use the park as much. And so that is sort of the crux of like when the philosophical dilemma I have when I am just trying to, do my jog on an afternoon of who gets to use this park and how.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's why in some cases where uses just, aren't compatible. So, for example, our wildlife management areas, which are our lands that primarily are for wildlife habitat and hunting opportunities, you can go there and hike. But if you choose to do that, for example, this time of year when we have small game hunting seasons open, firearms deer season is about to open, you know up front, or you should know up front that there are going to probably be people hunting out there. And so one, that's a safety issue if you're out there hiking, but two, if that's not a use that you are comfortable with, you should probably pick a different area like a state park or one of your county parks or city parks to go and take a walk in. The other thing I think is when you're saying when there's different people who have different values, I mean, that's part of the beauty of public lands, right? Is that we want them to be welcoming and inclusive to all. And sometimes, sure, those individual ways you might want to use something can conflict. One of the things we're reminding people, partly because there are so many Minnesotans using our public outdoor spaces right now, is it's really important to be good-natured when you're out there. And remember that your experience is in some ways dependent on how others are experiencing the outdoors and using the outdoors. And we want to make sure we're respectful and good-natured so that everyone has a positive experience.
So this is like the Minnesota version of like, you're not going to necessarily yell at someone and say, well, you can't go and tell people at the park you're going to hell, but I will be very disappointed if you decide to do that.
Right. Well, we do have rules in our areas, right? I mean, state parks have rules so that, if you're in a campground, for example, that one group of campers isn't disturbing another group of campers. But I think there's also, just that kind of social system that we have with anything that is a shared resource is, your experience is going to be shaped by the way I might interact with you in that shared space. And my experience is going to be influenced by how you might act. And so just best that we both be respectful and we be good natured, and so that, we both have a good experience.
So this leads me to a follow-up question, which is a big part of the work of the DNR is education. Are we doing a good enough job educating kids or giving, generations that are coming up now that sort of understanding of how we share these resources and some of those almost like ethical complexities?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. And that's certainly something that we strive to do. And I think, the DNR has a role in that. I think schools with their outdoor education programs and some of the nature centers, environmental learning centers, summer camps, there's a variety of ways that kids can learn that. But we also know, right, that there's this issue that's kind of been termed nature deficit disorder, and that kids have been maybe more removed and separated from some of those outdoor experiences. And so one of our priorities is to help people connect with the outdoors, because it is important for us to learn kind of that ethic around our public spaces, but it's also the way that we connect with nature and that we foster the next generation of stewards for our outdoor spaces and our natural resources. And it's the way that we foster the next generation of professionals who, might work at the DNR in the future and do the kinds of things that we do today to make sure that we have these quality resources and quality outdoor experiences for future generations of Minnesotans.
So what I'm hearing you say is that we should be testing children more on acorn species.
No, we don't want to test them on their species. We want to make being outdoors fun. We want to make sure that kids have a safe opportunity, but where they can explore and experience nature in a way that is relevant to them. And we don't all have we don't all find the same experiences relevant. So I think that's one of the opportunities. And actually, educators will tell us. We know this from research that just being outside and having that experiential learning is really good for kids' development.
Okay, I have a lot of things that I need to ask you about. So you mentioned that we've seen a ton of new use of our outdoor spaces this year. And it's because it's like literally the only place we're allowed to be together is to be outside together. And so that's real. I'm wondering if you can put any like specifics behind that. Is that true that we just are like seeing a lot more people out in Minnesota state parks and wildlife management areas and all the rest?
It is absolutely true. I mean, we see it anecdotally. I've heard stories from some of our parks staff. Parking lots are full at state parks, particularly those close to the metro area. Probably folks have seen it in their own neighborhood, trails, neighborhood parks with people in them. But we're seeing it too if we look at the sales that we have in state park permits. We are up nearly 30% in the permits that we sell for the vehicles to enter into state parks. And it's not only the spaces. People are trying other outdoor activities. We're up about 10% in fishing license sales this year. We saw a lot more people out this summer giving fishing a try, which is great. And we're seeing the same with our hunting seasons. We were up on our sales of small game hunting licenses and firearm deer licenses the same. We opened the season this Saturday. And so just in this week before, we are up about 14% over where we were the week before last year. So a lot more people out using our spaces and buying those licenses and permits that they need to access some of those activities. So, and I think the reason for that is, and we've known this, that getting outside is good for us, right? It's healthy. Breathing fresh air, moving our body, interacting with nature, all of those things reduce stress and anxiety. And obviously, going through a global pandemic brings on a lot of stress and anxiety. So a really good way to deal with that is to get outside.
Totally. How is deer and grouse and pheasant season going? Is that a question? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the seasons are going well. As I said, we're seeing more hunters this year than we have in the past. And honestly, we're kind of bucking what was a pretty concerning trend for us, which was declining participation in those activities. And again, those are traditionally important ways that Minnesotans have connected with the outdoors. It's also how we fund some of our operations. And so declines are concerning from that standpoint as well. But this year we are up in sales. We also have a lot of good opportunity. Our pheasant numbers are up this year. I know people are seeing rough grouse in the field more than they have in previous years. And we're expecting a good deer season too. Good population numbers, good hunting opportunities this year.
So we say that this is good that there's all these new deer hunters. I'm going to guess there are deer watching right now who are like, no, this is not good. And I don't mean to push back too much, but I do have someone who asked a question. And since you just brought up that the grouse are going well, this person asked, please ask the commissioner why there was only one grouse at Caribou Falls Wildlife Management Area. And so apparently they did not have a good grouse hunting experience. I don't know if that is your job to stock the grouse or make sure that they are out for people, but I don't care. I don't know if you care to comment on the grouse numbers.
Yeah, well, that's why it's hunting. You have to find the birds in that case. And I've certainly had my share of experiences where I haven't been so successful at that. But, I think part of it is just the experience too. Even if you don't come home with a successful hunt in terms of bringing home the bird or the deer, the experience is wonderful. I mean, I love being out, taking a walk through the grouse woods, watching the dogs, run through and search for birds. And so part of it is just that experience of being out in nature too.
Yes. There's a lot more folks using the outdoor spaces this year, partially because that's where we're allowed to be, partially because it's wonderful for relieving stress and being connected back to nature. I'm curious if there are things that you all have learned this year with COVID and with just having to do things differently and seeing different people engage that will inform how you do things even well into the future after maybe we don't have a pandemic anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still learning every day as we get through, the pandemic. I keep reminding myself and my colleagues, there is no instruction manual. None of us have managed through a global pandemic before. So, there's lots to learn. And quite honestly, feedback we get from the public, feedback we get from our own staff is really important to inform our learning. One of the things we realized we had to do pretty early on was, unfortunately, we already had the technology and the systems in place, but was to rely more on some of our online sales systems for park permits and fishing licenses, those kinds of things. And so we really ramped up the public awareness that those resources are there. We made sure that our information center was staffed so that people could call, and so that people who didn't want to, and initially, obviously, when we were at stay-at-home, couldn't physically go in to a license center or into a park office to get those permits or licenses. They were able to do that online. And I think we're still encouraging people to do that. It actually saves time. It reduces, lines as you are coming into a park, those kinds of things. It allows you to plan ahead for your hunting season, which ultimately probably will help you out and lead to a more successful season. So those are definitely things that we will carry forward. And I think it will allow us to focus on making more customer-oriented enhancements to those online sales systems.
One other piece that I definitely wanted to ask you about, and I should say, in the second half of the show, we're going to open it up for questions from folks at home. So if you have a question, start typing them into the chats now. Whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can just type them in there and Destiny will get them, or on Twitter, tweet them at us, and we will ask the commissioner in the second half of the show. There is a huge gap between, this gap shows up a lot, white people who feel comfortable and use parks, and people of color often, who historically often have not been welcome in a lot of cases at parks. And there's been a reckoning on this, I think it's fair to say, on a national level. I know that the Sierra Club and a number of national groups have really tried to start grappling with this, particularly this year, although over the last few years. But I'm wondering how you think about this work. Whether we see that same gap here in Minnesota, where parks and outdoor spaces are often used more by disproportionately by white people as opposed to people of color? And then B, what's the DNR's role in making it so that everyone not only feels welcome there, but actually sees themselves in those places?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate you asking, because I think this is some really important work that we are doing at DNR to make sure that our outdoor public spaces are welcoming and inclusive to all Minnesotans. And you are absolutely right that we do have a gap in Minnesota between the demographics of our population overall and the percentage that is made up of people of color. And when we look at the demographics of people who are using our DNR managed state spaces or participating in our programs, there's a gap there. They're very different. And that's really concerning, because as our state overall continues to diversify and the participants in our spaces and activities doesn't, we have that gap. And as I said before, connecting with the outdoors is the way that we foster the next generation of environmental and natural resource stewards. It's the way that we recruit the next generation of professionals. And as I said at the beginning, our public lands belong to all Minnesotans. So we certainly want to make sure that they are accessible and welcoming and inclusive to all Minnesotans, because that's what they're there for. So we are addressing that gap in a number of ways, and some of that involves creating and building partnerships and relationships with communities of color and with the media outlets for some of those communities. We're working on programs we've had in place for some time, skill building programs. We have a great series of classes in our Parks and Trails division called I CAN, and they're outdoor skill building programs that help teach people the basics of camping, the basics of fishing, paddling. So there's an I CAN paddle, and I CAN camp, I CAN fish course. And those actually, we've done a really great job of making those available and welcoming people of color into those. We actually have a higher percentage of people of color taking those, engaging in those programs. And it's a really great way for people to get comfortable with what does it mean to camp in a state park, and how do I put up a tent, and how do I build a bonfire, those kinds of basic things if you don't know, so you can take your family out. So there's those kinds of education programs, those kind of outreach programs, those invitations. And then we also have to think about kind of the more structural elements of our spaces, and are they welcoming and inclusive? So we know, for example, that historically we focus on people that kind of want that remote solo experience. And we have communities in Minnesota, our Hmong communities, for example, Latino communities, who really prefer to recreate in multi-generational, larger family groups. And so we focused on building additional group camps in some of our parks to make sure that there is an experience that, again, is relevant to the way that they want to experience the outdoors. So those are a few things that we're doing. We're also doing a lot of great work to make sure that our parks are accessible to people with disabilities. And I think this is so important because we all know, obviously there's the American with Disabilities Act, and, we need to make sure that folks can access the parking lots and the visitor center and the bathrooms. But we know that beyond that kind of basic legal compliance, our park experiences are so much more than that. And so we're actually working to make sure that we are not only paying attention to the accessibility of those basic buildings, but that we are creating an entire accessible park experience for people with disabilities.
So this is all very good, and I really appreciate the structural piece and thinking creatively about that. Let me ask one other question on this piece, which is just I'm curious if there's a chicken and an egg problem here or challenge for you all, in that you can maybe change some of these things, introduce new programs or whatnot, and yet still maybe like there's an element where it's like, well, I still don't see myself there, right? Like, because everybody, as you noted, even like everybody who's using the parks are like, not everybody, but like it's like white people all doing this thing, and that there's almost like an element where it's like you can have all these programs and whatnot, but there's still a gap of like, do I actually feel like this is for me, right? Like in that same way. Does that make sense? Like maybe that there's still a little space there?
Yeah, no, it does, absolutely. And I think that's where those relationships with community organizations come in. So I sat in on a presentation last week that some of our staff gave in our Fish and Wildlife Division, and they administer a program called No Child Left Inside. It's a grant program, and those grants are given to community organizations with a special emphasis to diversity inclusion and making sure that we are reaching some of those underserved communities. And this particular presentation focused on a grant that we gave to an organization in the Latino community, and specifically focused on fishing. And really the effort of this organization was to highlight the number of people in that community who use Minnesota's waters and enjoy fishing, so that folks in that community can see themselves in that. So those relationships are really important. And then frankly, the other thing that we're really working on is diversifying our own workforce, so that people can see themselves within, the DNR and feel that the DNR is working on their behalf too. And so, we're working on our recruitment efforts, again, through those relationships, through other networks. But we've also created a internship program called Increasing Diversity in Environmental Careers. And it's something we're doing with some of the other environmental agencies to bring young people in early in their college careers and sort of mentor them through a multi-year process with the hopes that they will enjoy their time and really think about a career in the natural resources field and continue their studies in that and ultimately maybe work for us in the future. So again, so that all Minnesotans can see themselves reflected in the DNR and our workforce.
That is a very wonderful, powerful note to close this first chat with. I will say again, in the second half of the show, we're going to open it up for questions, and we're already getting a bunch of questions for you that we'll ask you in the second half. But for right now, wherever you are, please do a big round of applause. DNR Commissioner Sarah Strommen, everybody. Yay! Thank you. You can hear the splatter. It's a lot of applause. It's just that it's scattered all across the country. So with that, we are going to welcome the cast of the Theater of Public Policy to the virtual stage now. As I promised at the top of the show, everything that they do is entirely made up on the spot. It is all improv, which means it's not pre-planned, it's not rehearsed. It is all just made up right here based just on this conversation that we had. So wherever you are, please make a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy, everybody.
Hey, I'm the only grouse in this entire park.
Oh, thank goodness. I have been searching absolutely up and down for you there, little guy.
I know.
Ooh,
Well,
you
try
weren't
being
over
the
there by
only
waterfall?
one.
What?
Just try being the only one.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it's not great.
I'm a
Oh.
grouse. Come on, it's terrible. Nothing makes me happy. I'm a grouse.
Oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I know you guys are pretty infamous for like the grouchiness, which I think is just a really funny namesake.
I'm gonna stop you right there, Mr. Hunter. It's grousiness. We're not grouches, we're grouses.
Whew. Okay, sorry. I mean, I really didn't mean to. It's just I've been walking for like 6 days. I swear, I checked absolutely everywhere, and I'm not even kidding.
I gotta tell you this, if you wanted to have a bunch of grouses together, can you imagine what that'd be like? We don't get along. We're grouses.
Well, I mean, maybe you just aren't trying hard enough. Maybe if you wanted a bunch of grouse friends, you guys could kind of get along together,
Yeah. Blame the prey.
Oh,
Hey, you guys.
Oh, wow.
You don't want to meet other grouses like me, because I got roughed up. That's right. I'm a roughed grouse. And now I'm mean and I'm nasty, and you better hope you don't find me when you come into the woods.
Hey, I heard about you, and there's only room for one grouse in this bivouac.
All right.
I don't know.
And that roughed grouse is me, because I'm roughed.
I don't know, guys. I think maybe if you tried like a little bit hard. I mean, wait, you're right. There's no way you guys could ever get more grouses here in this exact place. I challenge you. I think I bet.
I heard that there were a bunch of grouches getting together.
It's grouses.
Grouses.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here's the thing. I just need you to stand still. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna light these knives on fire, sir. Look, just don't look surprised. I just want you to have a good-natured experience. I like to go to some of the parks please just sit still, sir. Don't mind me. And I'm going to juggle the knives over your picnic with you and your family.
Yeah, but you see, we came out here to just kind of have a nice, quiet family time. I was actually going to teach the kids to meditate.
Sure, yeah, go ahead and do that. No problem whatsoever. I'm just going to dunk these in a bit of gasoline.
Okay, you see, but you're your way of using the parks is interfering with my family's way of using the parks. We actually were hoping for a non-flaming knife kind of experience of the parks.
Sure, but this is a public space, and I just want to try some things out, and I'm pretty good at what I do, and I think you and your family, I don't even mind if you watch. Do you know what I mean? I don't even mind if you watch. You got a good lighter. Mine's not doing exactly what I want.
Yeah. We've got like a fire starter here, so because we were gonna do a bonfire, maybe light some s'mores. But here you go. There you go. That lit up real good.
See, yeah, that does light up good. Every once in a while, though, I singe my eyebrows. But you and the kids, you guys are gonna be all right? Hang tight. Let me show you this move.
Kids, get down. All right.
Now this technique here, I learned at clown school. And I tell you, last time I did it over at family at the park over in Minnetonka. It didn't quite turn out how I expected, but it was all in good nature.
Dad, that's who I want to be when I grow up.
So now, Timmy, I know that it's been a pretty rough summer, okay? You've been inside all day. You've been playing your games all day. But right now, we're going to experience them outside, okay?
No, Dad, come on.
Now listen, I've been reading in Time magazine about this whole nature deficit disorder, wherein you don't know what the nature is, and I won't have it. Not in my house.
Dad, how am I going to charge my iPod if we're going out into nature? I can't do that.
Here, actually, hand me your iPad real quick. That's a good point. Oh, here, hand it on over. Yeah, there's your iPad. Yeah. All right, it's out in nature now. Isn't that great? See? Now if you want your iPad, you gotta go to nature.
What do you do in nature? I mean, I just look around and there's nothing here. There are no screens.
That Game Boy that you're playing? Hand that over too, actually, now that I think about it.
Come on, Dad.
No, it's fine. It's all part of nature. See? Look at all the things that you can enjoy out there now.
The nature is boring. That's what you're teaching me.
It's got a Game Boy in it.
Okay, we could go to the park. Park, but I can't say, okay, Kevin, take the hat off.
No, I think that we need to go hunting. I think hunting would be awesome.
We're gonna go hunting. A bunch of white folks with guns out there. Are you kidding me?
Oh, yeah. We're not represented in those spaces, and unless we get into those spaces, we'll never be in those spaces.
I get your logic, but I don't feel safe. And now you want to go kill things.
Allison, I know. I know you're worried that you're going to go out there and get Dick Cheney'd, but that hasn't happened in a really long time.
We stand out. Do you remember what happened to that guy? And he went out there and they told him he couldn't be in the woods just because they'd never seen a black guy in the woods before, trying to just have a good time. I mean,
but if they saw like black people there all the time,
what?
If they saw black people there all the time, maybe it wouldn't weird them out anymore.
So are you thinking like, oh, we'll be like pavemaker, we'll be like trailblazers? Or
like somebody has to be the first person to sit at the lunch counter.
I do feel better when I go outside. You make a good point. It's kind of almost like a.
Hey, excuse me, folks. I don't mean to eavesdrop, but my son and I overheard you talking about maybe joining sort of the outdoors and hunting. And I got to tell you, it would be refreshing to get some diversity out here. All we get are a lot of white people in these parks. And, frankly, I think it would be nice to get a little different point of view.
Yeah, okay.
See, the rabbits need exposure, hon.
Yeah, really.
Tokenized.
Oh, excuse me. I did not mean it that. I'm so sorry. No. It's not about that.
There's a reason why it makes me nervous. I want to be there.
Oh gosh, I seem to have offended you. I'm so sorry. I didn't. I don't want.
Hey, rabbits, can I ask you a question?
Sure, yeah.
When is rabbit hunting season?
Oh, that's good.
Hi, I'm a silver maple, and I'm just hoping that somebody will come and talk to me. I know that a lot of you are having anxiety, and that's why I'm here. Just come out and share. Hi, sir. Sir,
Hi.
hi.
Yeah, you're a silver maple.
Hi. Yeah, no, really, I want to be here for you humans. I know that it's been so rough in this quarantine.
I have to warn you, I have nature deficit disorder, so this is a little overwhelming for me.
Oh, I get it. Now, what I hear you saying is that you have nature deficit disorder.
Yeah.
Let's say that there were 4 feelings you could attach to that. What would they be?
Excitement,
Uh-huh.
terror,
Okay.
constipation,
Oh, good. That's not a feeling, but go on.
and wonder.
Oh, wow.
I
That's
feel
wonderful.
I say I feel constipated, so I think that is a feeling.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's an associated feeling. That's so great. Listen now, as a silver maple, I am here to absorb a lot of your anxiety. So let me just take a little bit of it from you, okay? Here we go.
Wow.
Wow.
I feel like you just sucked the oxygen or the carbon dioxide right away from me.
I did, and it's just making me shiver. Look at my leaves.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can feel the oxygen coming back to me from you.
Yeah, no, so let's make this a transferable skill. What are you going to take from this experience when you go back into the urban world?
I'm gonna take back that you're a really pretty tree that I could turn into a beautiful oak bench, maybe.
I think you've crossed a boundary here, and
What?
well,
I was told that these parks belong to everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. Now, please welcome back to the virtual stage your host for this evening, Tane Danger.
Yay! That was great, hilarious. I love bunnies. Thank you all so much. Big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy cast. This is the part of the show where I remind you all who are watching that the way that we are supporting the show this season is 100% based on your donations. And so in the past, historically, we have been able to fill up this theater mostly, and have people buy tickets. And that was what allowed us to pay our amazing cast of performers and put the money up for all of the stuff behind the scenes that makes these shows happen. But this year, we can't be here together in the theater. We are putting all of our stuff out there online for free for you all. So if you are able, this is a wonderful and amazing time to donate, to make a contribution to the Theater of Public Policy. Because, and this is totally true, your donations are everything that is powering this show these days and making sure that it is financially viable. So if you can make a donation, a show ticket normally would be like $15. That is a great place to start. I know some people have been chipping in more than that to like cover them coming and seeing multiple shows. It helps a lot, and it really is what is making this whole thing go. So if you can donate, please do. With that, I'm going to bring back our amazing guests to answer questions that you all have. So please, one more time, a big round of applause for DNR Commissioner Sarah Strommen, everybody. Yay! Everyone's very excited you're back. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions. Questions have been like just piling in. And so the first one is a hard one, but I think that it's very important. And it's something that a lot of people, a lot of people all over the state have been thinking a lot about. So the question is, if you can talk about the relationship between how you think about public spaces and the places that the DNR manages and the homeless or people without homes. And I'll just set the sort of question up by saying here, particularly in the Twin Cities, although I think that we see elements of this in a lot of places, we see these encampments where we have folks who don't have permanent homes setting up tents in basically small encampments of a lot of people in a whole variety of parks all over the Twin Cities. And it kind of goes back to that initial thing that we were talking about in, their public space. Those folks have just as much a right to be there as anybody else. And yet I also know and hear people who say, the fact that these encampments are there makes me feel differently about using that space as I did before. And maybe I'm more hesitant to go there alone, or maybe, I feel almost like I'm walking through somebody's house now or somebody's home in a way. And so it does change how people interact with it. And I'm curious how you think about this from your vantage point.
Yeah, well, that certainly has been an issue for some managers of public park spaces, and as you noted, particularly in the metro area. The reality for us is we haven't had to wrestle with that as much as entities like the Minneapolis Park Board, just given the location of the lands we manage. We haven't seen those encampments pop up. And I also think that given the rules and the purposes around our lands too, they haven't really been places where those encampments have popped up. So, for example, many of our lands are not open to camping. Our wildlife management areas would not allow that, and that would not be a use that we could allow there. Our state forests are open to camping. We have not seen the encampments. We certainly have seen individuals there and using those spaces. And then where we do have campgrounds, for example, in our state parks, I mean, that's sort of the purpose of our rules around those is to ensure that balance and to ensure that use is not in conflict with the enjoyment of others, to ensure that the use realm of issues that managers of public spaces have to try to balance of at what point does a particular use conflict with a larger issue of safety or a larger enjoyment of the parks. But again, that particular issue is not something we've wrestled with on our state lands.
What are some of those rules, just out of curiosity?
Well, for example, in our state parks, you have to camp in a designated camp site and campground. So, those we design those and space those to ensure that the number of people using a particular space is consistent with the experience that people want to have. I mean, if you have so many people that it's just, it's really loud and you're kind of on top of the next campsite, that's a different type of experience than our state park visitors usually look for. We also want to make sure that we have, the water and bathroom facilities to accommodate the number of people there. And that obviously is not only an experience and enjoyment issue, but one of public health. And so, we have to manage that issue. I mean, the reality is our state park campgrounds are almost like small cities, when they have a lot of use. And so we need to make sure, just like a city government would have zoning and different rules to ensure that one person's enjoyment or one group of people's enjoyment doesn't infringe on the rights and enjoyment of others. We have the same kind of thing within our public spaces.
Thank you for that. I have another question here. Are there any plans to expand WMAs, and that's wildlife management areas, I believe, right? So, yep. Or are there any way to advocate for further WMA acquisition? Some of my favorite places in the state and important to offering equal access to outdoor recreation. So can you talk a little bit about WMAs, expanding them, how people can be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to hear that WMAs are somebody's favorite lands and type of experience. That's great. The reality is, yes, we do have an active acquisition program for our wildlife management areas. It differs depending on what part of the state you're in. In some parts of the state where we have a lot of public land and a lot of experience, a lot of those opportunities, we may be doing less acquisition and focused more on rounding out existing units or connecting existing units in parts of the state where we don't have a lot of wildlife management area, and that's particularly in the southern state. We're still looking for those opportunities to acquire land, and particularly where there is already good habitat, or in some cases we restore the habitat there if there's that kind of opportunity, to ensure that we have kind of more equal access, so that depending on your geography of where you live, that isn't dependent, that doesn't determine your ability to access those wildlife management areas. So we are acquiring those. We work a lot through nonprofit partners, Ducks Unlimited, Pheasants Forever, Nature Conservancy. Some of those groups work on acquisitions with us. So maybe somebody's involved in one of those groups, or maybe they just want to follow along on the DNR's process. And you can certainly learn more about our WMAs on our DNR website. It's actually a fabulous way to see all those WMAs.
So a related question, and this was not asked, but literally just earlier today on my one of my text threads with a bunch of guys who I go camping with, they were like, "Hey, there's this land for sale from the DNR. Maybe we should buy it and then make a little refuge that we all can go to." And I reminded them that I am an improv comedy performer for a living and cannot afford anything. So I am curious though, when do you sell land? Why does the DNR sell land?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is because, as I said, we manage this whole portfolio of 5.6 million acres of public land. And just like any portfolio of assets, you want to actively manage that to make sure that it is performing to your goals in the best way that it can. So sometimes we have a program we use to review where we want to acquire lands. We also review where it might benefit our portfolio of state lands to exchange. Sometimes we have lands that are very checkerboard ownership between county and state lands. And so by exchanging, we can consolidate that ownership and create different kinds of opportunities. And occasionally, the reality is some of the parcels we own may be small, maybe isolated. Sometimes there's not even legal access to some of the parcels we have. And so by selling those parcels that aren't really maximizing the values that we want to achieve and maximizing our opportunity to achieve our mission, we can sell those, and then we can take those proceeds and reinvest them in lands that do help us meet our mission and do create more opportunities for the variety of public lands values. So, we don't clearly sell in equal proportion to what we acquire, but that is part of our active land portfolio management.
But you would tell me ahead of time, before I bought this land for my gay camping compound, you would let me know if it has access or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
yes. Yep. For sure. And those lands are all sold at auction. I mean, there's a whole process around sales that makes sure that we aren't, inappropriately disposing of assets that are of some value, to the public. So there's a review process, and obviously, yes, we would disclose any kinds of access issues or any other kinds of restrictions that might be on the property.
Okay, this is another land sort of related question, which Marty asks, why isn't there a straightforward document that shows what different types of state-owned land can be used for, and the code/statute that declares that? I've been looking for years. Well, I don't know. Maybe if you do this, then what will Marty do? But he wants this document. Is this not something he can find?
Well, I would encourage, if Marty hasn't checked out the Recreation Compass on the DNR's website, that is a great way to find the DNR lands near you and understand what recreation unit they're designated in. I'm not sure that it will link you to the statute and rule. Maybe that's something we can look at. But I think the point here is a good one in that we are trying to make it easier for people to know what lands are near them, or maybe if not even near them, but a place where they have interest in visiting, and for folks to see what kinds of lands those are and what you need. So if it's a state park, you need a vehicle permit to enter. If it's a wildlife management area, you don't, but you want to know what kinds of activities occur there. Those kinds of things. So the Recreation Compass is a good tool. Another tool which doesn't tell you, how to use them and kind of those tips. But we have these new GeoPDF maps, and there's a free app called the Avenza app, and these are fabulous maps because you can download them onto your cell phone. So for people who do want to use their technology in nature, you could download these maps ahead of time. I use the one for the Paul Bunyan State Forest all the time, and then you don't even need cell connectivity when you're out there, and it will. This app will show you where you are. Cool. On that land and help you navigate areas. And so there are a lot of new tools coming out, and partly because we do want people to get the information easily and understand where they can recreate and how.
What, can you say the name of that app one more time?
Yeah, it's Avenza.
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 I will Avenza you. Okay. James says, and I feel like this is one that is very much up your alley, considering your past work. We're concerned about mining near the boundary waters. How do you work with federal lands, the Interior Department, etc., to protect wild areas like the boundary waters?
Yeah, great question. We work very closely with the federal agencies, and specifically in terms of the mining question and the proposal. I'm assuming the question's referring to the Twin Metals mine, which is not far from the boundary waters. I think a couple things. In that particular case, and there is, like any project, a process for us to evaluate the proposal, to do environmental review, make sure the proposal meets state law, make sure we, have a process to rigorously review the science and also to take public input into those. We do coordinate with the federal agencies. For that particular project, we have chose to do a separate environmental review process because we want to ensure that the process meets Minnesota law, and given some of the changes at the federal level, we weren't sure if we did that collectively we could meet our Minnesota requirements and the standards that Minnesotans expect here. But we will still coordinate with the agencies, the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service.
I have a fun question here from PC, who asks, have any thought been given to creating areas for adult-only groups?
That is a good question. And I don't know the answer to that, actually. If we have considered that, I think often, I will be honest, that a lot of our focus is on families because that tends to be the majority of users. People want to get out and enjoy that space outside with their families. I don't know if we've considered having adult-only areas for people who don't want to enjoy family time.
Which there are many of us. Okay. I have a couple ones I want to ask you myself. One, following up on the adult-only thing, like you can't drink in state parks, right? Like alcohol is usually not allowed in state parks. Is that
correct?
Come on. Like exactly. You can't keep a straight face about this. Like we've all been in state parks. That's not a thing that that is actually working, is it?
Well, I'm not in all the state parks, so I can't tell you if folks are following the rules in every park. But I think, the reason for it is less about the alcohol and more about the behavior that results after after the alcohol. And so again, I mean, to go back to our earlier conversation about having rules that try to ensure that one person's experience doesn't detrimentally affect another person's experience. Again, it's about the behavior.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
fine. No, I mean
that's a common complaint. I know.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's a little like telling colleges, like, oh yeah, we're a dry campus. Like, sure you are. But we'll fight this out another day. So there was that one I wanted to ask you. Oh, okay, last one that I was going to ask you to end on just a very fun thing here, which is you're a big fisher, right? Fisher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love fishing.
So, can you teach me how to ice fish well? And B, will you go ice fishing with me and my friends on BWCA this winter?
Yes, I would love to go ice fishing with you on BWCA. Just, we'll plan that. Socially distant, right? Yeah. Outside. But yeah. That's a great activity. And sure, I can give you a few tips.
What is the secret? Because I've never caught anything ice fishing, and it feels like ice fishing is really only fun for about 10 minutes if you're not catching anything, because after that, it's just cold, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, it can get cold. I like to bring a shelter with me. I don't do the whole wheelhouse thing, but a portable shelter. And, so when you get cold, you can put a little heat in it. That helps. But, if you aren't finding them at one spot, it also helps if you pick up and move. And you probably want to do a little research beforehand, too, to learn where people are finding the fish. But you do have to move sometimes to find the fish. But once you find them, then it's so much fun.
Do you use like a fish finder?
We use a locator. So just in terms of the lake, you kind of want to know, where people are catching them. You want to know where there are break lines, where there are deep holes, kind of where the fish may be. And then, most people will use some kind of electronics to, in their hole to be able to see if there are fish down there. Okay.
This is helpful. I know we were talking a lot about a lot of very serious, big questions here. And I just needed to make sure that I got that one in. So I want to say thank you so much for being here and for taking the time to do this. Everybody, wherever you are, big round of applause. Commissioner Sarah Strommen, everybody. Yay! Okay, that's great. You are applauding your applause at home, but right now we're going to turn the stage over to the cast of the Theater of Public Policy, who one more time is going to take all of the very serious things we talked about and then also my questions about ice fishing and bring them all to life through entirely unscripted improv comedy theater. So one more time, a big round of applause for the Theater of Public Policy.
Animals and plants of the forest, can I please have your attention?
Not me.
My name is Joseph. I come with a message from the DNR. It turns out that this section of the forest is just underperforming, and so now we're going to have to kick you to the herb, as they say. Kick you to the herb. That's a kind of tasty beer that we can't actually drink in this part of the woods until we sell it. And that's what's happening to you. You're going away.
Now wait a minute. I've been upping my grazing this entire season. Okay.
Yes, you're upping your grazing, but how many DNR license plates have you sold? If you sold like 5 license plates, that's like $30,000 to fund this part of the park.
I don't have hands to hold them.
I'm a salamander, and I scared a whole bunch of kids. I got in their sleeping bags because it was warm.
Yeah, and now those people don't want to buy hunting licenses to come back here, and that's just more profits that we're losing from this part of the park.
But I'm cold-blooded.
Hey guys.
Don't take the bait. Don't.
Okay, that's what I'm freaking out about. Do you see that guy up there in the water? I swear, dude. I swear. Last week it was Michael. The week before that it was Karen. It's disappearing faster than I'm freaking out.
Jennifer, he wants you to take the bait. You remember that we've talked about this. Just rise above it. Do not engage.
I'm looking him in the eye. Say again.
You can't really rise above it because there's a bunch of ice on top of us. So I mean that doesn't make a lot of sense. But I get the point of it, so it's fine.
I don't understand. It's like he can understand us, but I can't understand him.
Look, Jennifer,
he gets me. Do you see? That's what it is.
I know he gets you, but you've got to use your gills. Take a great big breath and just center yourself. Do not take the bait.
But I'm looking at it and I see it, and it's like all over the place, like almost like it's more than usual.
I know, it's everywhere. You just got to be cool. Look, dive deep with me. Here we go.
Oh, I don't know, guys. Looks like that might be a real tasty worm over there.
Oh my God! Do you see that?
I don't know, guys.
Maybe
what are you doing?
Maybe this is one worm.
Wait a minute now. How is that? There's two worms up here.
It's almost.
There might be two worms up here.
It's hypnotic, really.
Look at me, Jennifer. Look at me. Look at me in the eye, please.
Maybe Carl, they went to a better place. You know, that's why everybody's just disappearing so fast. It wasn't like that last year.
He went to a barbecue, Jennifer.
What?
Think about it. Yes.
It's a synchronized worm dance.
Oh my! Look at that. Look.
Oh, it is. It's synchronized. They're.
It's so beautiful.
Okay. What about this? What if you and I? What if we just take a little nibble together? We just take a little nibble together, and we'll see what happens. At least, maybe we'll get to a better place.
We'll give it a okay. Here we go.
Gotcha.
I am Avenza 2.0, your artificially intelligent nature companion.
Oh, that's great, because I have a lot of questions about nature. I mean, I want to go hunting, and I know that I can hunt with a bow and arrow now, and that I can hunt with a gun this coming weekend. But when can I hunt with this?
Negative. That is not an approved hunting device. You may.
This seems more sportsmanlike to get right in the thick of it. So I can't hunt with a knife. What about this? Can I hunt with the taser? Just zap a bear and take him out that way?
Negative. Avenza 2.0 does not approve of tasered hunting. Awaiting next question.
I have to tell you, this is all really disappointing, and so I think I'm just going to drink out here.
Please refrain from drinking alcohol in state parks areas. That is not permitted.
This is such a downer.
Avenza 2.0 is here to help you enjoy nature.
Well, I'm going to tell you to your face that I think that Avengers 2, The Age of Ultron, was the worst Avengers movie.
Oh, thank God. Listen, I really need some help here, Jim. I lost the list. I lost a big list of nonprofits back there, and I need help with reconstructing it. Okay? I've got Pheasants Forever. That one was easy. I think the rest was like Grouse's Go Everywhere as Needed. I think that might have been the next one. Do you remember the third one, though?
I do. I'm going to sing it to you because it's...
Thank God. That's the only way I can really process information, Jim.
Yeah, it's songs for spores, who fall from the trees and find life in the mulch below. There's more to this song, but I don't want to sing it all by myself.
It's coming back to me now that you've started me on the whole thing.
Yeah. Alexis, don't you know part of this song?
Oh, I sure do. That's why I showed up. Sorry, I'm late, fellas. Hey, Chris. Hey, Jim.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey, do you want to jump in on the next part?
Sure do.
You remember it.
Will you sing it with me, Jim? You know all the words.
I'd be happy to. Let's do it together at the same time, okay?
At the same time.
Okay, all right.
And the are here for
you.
Yes.
Ooh.
Listen, guys, I'm sorry. I think that maybe somewhere along the way we took a little bit of a misstep because I just don't remember an entire thing about something being for me, the whole thing.
Whoa.
But that is what it is. The parks are for you. The parks are for you, Chris. The parks are for you, Chris.
The parks are for you, Chris. The parks are for you.
Come out and play with us. Look at a bird.
Gonna come out and play.
Unless
Gonna come out and play with all of my friends tonight. I've got a beaver, I've got a rabbit and a dog and an orange thing today in my park.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the cast of the Theater of Public Policy. Now, please welcome back to the virtual stage your host for this evening, Tane Danger.
Hey, everybody, that was so silly and great. I don't have an animal nearby. I just have this gourd. Okay, so thank you all so much for watching tonight. I got to do a couple quick announcements before we thank everybody again for being here, including our fabulous guests. Big announcement. Hopefully you have heard that there is an election tomorrow. I want to say two things about that. First of all, if you are somebody who is going to be working the polls tomorrow as an election judge or a poll worker or a volunteer or anything like that, you are a hero. Thank you so much for your work and for making our democracy work. You are awesome. If you are going to be home tomorrow evening between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock Central Standard Time, this is my second announcement. Please join us for our election night special in collaboration with Amrika and the Weissman Art Museum. It's weird, but it's super exciting. We are going to have 3 fabulous stand-up comedians who are going to be joining us, the Theater of Public Policy, for an evening of comedy and distraction largely from not knowing what's happening. Because probably between 8 and 10 o'clock, we're not going to know anyway. And so we have 3 amazing comedians who are going to be doing stand-up. Our cast is going to be doing improv. I may or may not have this gourd with me, and it will be a fun, weird night and a good little break, I would say, from watching Wolf Blitzer talk about nothing in particular. So join us tomorrow night between 8 and 10 o'clock for Amrika Comedy Special. We're very excited about it. I also got to say a big thank you once again to our 2 fabulous partners for this whole season, the Bryant Lake Bowl, which is here, and we hope that you come and visit them. Support them, make sure that this bowling alley theater restaurant survives the pandemic. And Finnegan's beer, I can't believe I forgot to say this in the first time. So Finnegan's beer is delicious, and you should just go get it because it's great. Also, if you go on their website or you go to their tap room and you use the code T2P2 at checkout, you get 20% off of a growler fill. So you can get a whole bunch of beer for tomorrow, fill it up at their tap room, get 20% off. support a great Minnesota business, help feed the hungry, have something to drink, and that'll be great. So we are super excited to be back with you tomorrow night, but we have to say goodnight for tonight first. So one more time, wherever you are, can you do a big round of applause for our fabulous guest, Sarah Strommen, everybody, DNR Commissioner. Yay! All right, and with that, we'll say goodnight to the cast of the Theater of Public Policy one more time. Jim Robinson, Chris Rodriguez, Fred Chang, Alexis Camille, and Duck Washington. All right, everybody, say goodnight and say a big thank you to Dennis Curley in the booth who makes this whole thing happen. Yay! Talk to you tomorrow. Good night, everybody.